The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor. Not from an accident, not from a toast gone wrong, but from the force of Natasha Williams' hand trembling. Trembling not with fear, but with a rage so pure it took every ounce of her control not to let it consume her entirely. "Hey, ma'am, I think you're in the wrong neighborhood." The voice cut through the jazz music like a knife. Brandon Whitmore stood there, CEO of Technova, Forbes 30 Under 30, with that smile. The one that said he owned everything and everyone in the room. "You should have noticed that the moment you couldn't find any ghetto houses with people like you." The room erupted with laughter. All eyes on Natasha Williams. 30 seconds ago, she'd been admiring the crown molding she'd spent weeks selecting. The custom Italian chandelier she'd had shipped at ridiculous expense. The view of the valley she'd dreamed about since she was 8 years old, sleeping 3 to a bed in a one-bedroom apartment in Oakland. 30 seconds ago, this was supposed to be her moment. Now, standing in a sea of white faces in designer clothes, holding shards of a glass she hadn't meant to break, Natasha felt something she hadn't felt in 15 years, since the day she'd presented her first business plan to a room full of investors who'd laughed her out of the building. Small. But here's what Brandon Whitmore didn't know. What none of them knew. The security code that let them in? She'd set it. The catering staff serving their champagne? She'd hired them. The deed to this $6 million mansion in Atherton, California, the most expensive zip code in America? It had her name on it, signed, sealed, as of exactly 4 hours ago. Natasha looked at Brandon, then at the 100 people packed into her living room, and she made a choice that would change everything. She bent down, picked up the largest shard of glass, and carefully set it on the nearest table. "I'll pay for that," she said quietly. Then she walked toward the door. "Good day, family. Welcome to another story. If this is your first time here, welcome to the family. This is Speak Black Stories. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for daily uploads. Your support means everything. Now, let's continue the story. 4 hours earlier, Natasha's silver Tesla had pulled up to the mansion at 3:47 p.m. She'd sat in the driveway for 10 minutes just looking at it. The house was a sprawling Mediterranean-style estate with olive trees lining the circular approach, exactly like the pictures in the magazines her mother used to hide under the mattress. Teresa Williams, who'd worked as a housekeeper in neighborhoods like this one, who'd died 3 years ago without ever owning property. "This one's for you, Mama," Natasha had whispered. The closing had taken 90 minutes. Natasha had paid cash, $6.2 million wired from her account without blinking. The lawyer handling the transaction kept glancing at her like he was waiting for someone else to show up. The real person. The actual buyer. Claire Morrison, her real estate agent, had been oddly distracted during the signing, checking her phone, stepping out to take calls. When Natasha asked if something was wrong, Claire had smiled brightly. "Just coordinating some details for you. I want your first night in your new home to be perfect." "I'm just planning to order pizza and sleep on an air mattress," Natasha had laughed. "The furniture won't arrive until next week." "Oh, you'll want to come by around 8, Claire had said. "I'm having a small welcome gift delivered. Just a little housewarming surprise." Red flag number 1. But Natasha had been too happy to question it. She'd spent the afternoon driving around her new neighborhood, past estates with gates and security cameras, past perfectly manicured lawns and luxury cars in driveways, past people walking designer dogs who didn't make eye contact. At 7:30 p.m., she'd stopped for takeout from a Thai restaurant, planning to eat dinner in her empty house and christen it properly. She'd changed into a simple black dress, Tom Ford, because she'd earned the right to wear whatever she wanted, and driven back. That's when she'd seen the cars, dozens of them, lining the street near her house. Red flag number 2. She'd pulled into her driveway and noticed a valet station set up. A young man in a red vest had approached her car. "Are you with the catering company?" he'd asked. Natasha's stomach had dropped. "No, This is my house." The valet had looked confused. "Oh, do you have an invitation?" "An invitation to my own house?" "Right, sorry, He'd looked around nervously. "Let me get the event coordinator." But Natasha had already gotten out of the car, handed him the keys out of sheer momentum, and walked toward her front door. The music had hit her first: jazz, live band. Then the smell: catered food, expensive perfume, too many bodies in an enclosed space. The front door had been propped open. Inside, her house was packed with strangers. At least 100 people, maybe more. Everyone in business, casual, or cocktail attire. A full bar set up in her kitchen. Waiters circulating with trays of hors d'oeuvres. Someone had even brought in additional furniture. High-top tables, a cocktail lounge set up. Natasha had stood in her own foyer, invisible, watching people drink her wine and admire her view. That's when she'd spotted Claire across the room, holding court with a group of men in expensive suits. And that's when she'd started pushing through the crowd. And that's when Brandon Whitmore had noticed her. And that's when everything had fallen apart. Now, with glass shards on the table and 100 pairs of eyes watching her walk toward the exit, Natasha's mind is moving at light speed. She's 3 steps from the door when she hears Claire's voice. "Natasha, wait!" Natasha stops, doesn't turn around. Claire rushes over, grabs her arm. "Where are you going? I can explain." "Explain what?" Natasha's voice is low, controlled, deadly. "Explain why there are 100 strangers in my house? Explain why you threw a party without my permission? Or explain why you just let that man—" I know, Brandon is—" Claire glances back at the crowd, lowers her voice. "Look, this isn't what it looks like. Just give me 5 minutes. Private, please." Natasha looks at Claire's face. Sees something there. Not embarrassment. Not guilt. Anticipation. "The library," Natasha says. "Now." They walk through the crowd together. Natasha feels every eye on her. Hears the whispers starting. Brandon is surrounded by his friends now, already spinning the story, probably making it worse. The library is one of the few rooms not packed with people. Natasha closes the door, leans against it. "Talk." Claire takes a breath. "Okay. First, I'm sorry. Genuinely." The comment Brandon made was, "Cut the bullshit, Claire. Why is there a party in my house?" Claire's expression shifts. The apologetic mask drops. What's underneath is harder, sharper. "Because Brandon is my ex-husband," she says. "And I wanted him to have the worst night of his life." Silence. "You used me," Natasha says slowly. "I created an opportunity for you," Claire corrects. "Think about it. Brandon Whitmore just publicly humiliated you in front of Silicon Valley's elite. On camera, I saw at least 10 people recording. When you reveal that you own this house, that you're N. Williams, the founder he's been desperately trying to court for months. How do you know about that?" "I still have friends at Technova," Claire says. "I know Brandon's been trying to acquire Artemis AI. I know his company is failing. I know he needs you more than you need him. And I know—" She steps closer. "That watching him realize he just destroyed his last chance at saving his company will be the sweetest revenge I've ever had." Natasha stares at her. "You're insane." "I'm efficient," Claire says. "Look, you can hate me later, but right now you have a choice. Walk out that door and this becomes a story about a black woman who got humiliated and ran away. Or you go back in there, wait for the perfect moment, and reveal the truth. Become the hero, the victim who won, the feel-good story that goes viral and makes Brandon Whitmore unemployable." "I don't want to be a viral story." "Too late," Claire says, pulling out her phone. She shows Natasha Twitter. The hashtag wrong neighborhood is already trending. Someone posted a video of Brandon's comment. It has 50,000 views and climbing. Natasha feels sick. "You did this," she says. "You set this whole thing up. The party, the timing, making sure I'd arrive when Brandon would be drunk enough to say what he really thinks," Claire finishes. "Yes, I did. And now you have a choice. Use it or lose it." Natasha looks at the door. She can hear the party continuing on the other side. Music, laughter, people who have already forgotten about her. She thinks about her mother, about 15 years of proving herself, about every room she's entered where she had to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. She thinks about what winning actually means. "I need to make a phone call," she says. Claire smiles. "Take your time. I'll make sure Brandon stays put." After Claire leaves, Natasha doesn't make a call. She sits on the floor of her empty library and tries to figure out who the hell she wants to be. Natasha sits there for maybe 5 minutes before there's a soft knock on the door. "Occupied," she calls out. The door opens anyway. It's one of the catering staff, a black woman, older, maybe 60, wearing the standard black and white uniform. She's carrying a tray with a single glass of water. "Thought you might need this more than champagne," the woman says. Natasha takes the water, drinks half of it in one go. "Thank you." The woman doesn't leave. She closes the door behind her, sets the tray down. "I'm Dorothy," she says. "I own the catering company, and I need to tell you something before you go back out there." "I'm not going back out there." "Yes, you are," Dorothy says matter-of-factly. "Because that's who you are. You don't run. But before you do, you need to hear this." She sits down on the floor next to Natasha, groaning a little as her knees crack. "I've been catering events in this neighborhood for 23 years, Dorothy says. "Worked in these houses before I owned my business, cleaned them, cooked in them, raised white people's children in them while my own kids were in after-school programs." Natasha listens. "And I've seen a lot of black folks come through these neighborhoods over the years," Dorothy continues. "Athletes, tech people like you, entertainers, all of them trying to prove something, all of them thinking that if they just got the right house, the right car, the right invitations, they'd finally be seen as equal." "And?" Natasha asks. "And they're still cleaning up racist comments at parties," Dorothy says, "still explaining their right to exist in spaces they paid for, still performing for people who will never see them as anything other than exceptions. So what's your point? I shouldn't have bought the house?" "My point is," Dorothy looks at her directly, "what are you buying it for? If it's to prove something to people like Brandon Whitmore, you'll never have enough houses, never have enough money, never have enough success, because people like him don't see black excellence as evidence that they're wrong. They see it as an exception that proves their rule." Natasha feels something crack open in her chest. "But if you bought it because you wanted it," Dorothy continues, "because it makes you happy, because it's your dream and nobody else's, then that's different. Then you don't need their approval. You don't need their recognition. You don't need to go back in that room and perform your worthiness." "Claire says I have a chance to make Brandon pay," Natasha says quietly. "Claire wants to make her ex-husband pay," Dorothy corrects. "You're just the weapon. Question is, do you want to be a weapon in someone else's war, or do you want to fight your own battles?" Natasha is quiet for a long moment. "What would you do?" she finally asks. Dorothy laughs, a rich, warm sound. "Baby, I'm 62 years old. I'm tired. I'd probably go home, take a bath, and let these people clean up their own mess." But I'm not you," Dorothy says. "I didn't build a multi-million-dollar company. I didn't buy a house in Atherton. I didn't break through doors that were supposed to stay closed. You've got a light on you now, whether you wanted it or not. Only you can decide what to do with it." She stands up, knees cracking again. Although, Dorothy adds, if you're taking suggestions, there's a community center in East Palo Alto that could use a technology lab. Been trying to fundraise for 2 years. Can't get any of these tech millionaires to look at our proposals. She pulls a business card from her pocket, sets it on the floor next to Natasha. That's my card. Other side has my pastor's number. Pastor Reeves. Good man. If you ever want to put your money where it might actually matter. Dorothy heads for the door, then pauses. Oh, and Natasha? That man out there called you the wrong name, put you in the wrong box, tried to make you small. Don't prove him wrong by playing his game. Prove him irrelevant by playing yours. She leaves. Natasha sits alone with 2 business cards now, Claire's vision of revenge and Dorothy's vision of purpose. The party noise swells as someone opens the door to leave. Natasha stands up. She's made her decision. When Natasha walks back into the main room, the crowd has thinned slightly. Maybe 20 people left, the diehards. Brandon is holding court near the bar, telling some story that has his audience laughing. Claire spots her immediately, starts toward her. Natasha holds up a hand. I'll handle this my way. She walks straight to Brandon Whitmore. The conversation dies as she approaches. Brandon turns, and for just a second, she sees apprehension flicker across his face. Then the mask slams back down, confident, amused, untouchable. Listen, he starts. I may have come on a little strong before. It's been a long week, and I'd like to hear more about Technova, Natasha interrupts. Brandon blinks. I'm sorry? Your company. You mentioned acquisition targets. I'm interested in the tech sector. I'd love to understand your strategy. She can see him recalibrating. This is not what he expected. The men around him exchange glances. Well, Brandon says slowly, I'm not sure this is the right venue for... Oh, I insist, Natasha says, her voice pleasant. You clearly know so much about who belongs in which neighborhoods. I'm curious if your business instincts are equally sharp. The edge in her tone is subtle but unmistakable. A few people nearby have stopped their conversations to listen. Brandon's jaw tightens. Technova is focused on cloud infrastructure. We're in growth mode, looking for strategic acquisitions that complement our platform. Like Artemis AI? She watches his face carefully. There it is, the flash of surprise. You're familiar with Artemis? He asks. I follow the industry, Natasha says. I heard the founder is resistant to your offers. Something about cultural fit concerns? Brandon's smile is strained now. Every negotiation has its challenges. Natasha sips water from the glass Dorothy gave her. And what would you say makes Technova's culture appealing to potential partners? What would you tell a founder who had, say, concerns about whether your company values diversity? The room has gone very quiet now. Technova is committed to diversity and inclusion, Brandon says, the words automatic. We have multiple initiatives. Like welcoming Black professionals into exclusive networking events? Natasha asks. Making them feel like they belong? Brandon's face goes red. One of his friends puts a hand on his shoulder, whispers something. Look, Brandon says, I already apologized for... No, Natasha says calmly. You didn't. You said you came on strong. That's not an apology. That's a deflection. She looks around at the faces watching them, some curious, some uncomfortable, some already pulling out phones. Here's what I think, Natasha continues. I think you made assumptions about who I am based on the color of my skin. I think you felt entitled to humiliate me in front of your peers because you thought I had no power, no recourse, no right to be here. And I think you're only concerned about it now because someone might be recording. That's not fair, Brandon says. You don't know anything about me. You're right, Natasha agrees. I don't. Just like you didn't know anything about me. The difference is, I didn't assume. I didn't judge. I didn't try to make you feel small, to make myself feel big. She sets her glass down on the bar. Claire, she calls out. Claire appears instantly, that anticipatory look back on her face. Yes? I need you to ask everyone to leave, Natasha says. The party's over. Wait, Claire says. Don't you want to... No, Natasha says firmly. I don't want to do your reveal. I don't want to be your revenge plot. I don't want to humiliate Brandon the way he humiliated me. She turns back to Brandon. You should know, I do own this house, she says quietly, just loud enough for the nearby people to hear. I bought it this afternoon, and you should also know that I'm N. Williams, the founder of Artemis AI that you've been trying to acquire. Brandon's face goes from red to white. But you'll never know if I would have taken your meeting, Natasha continues. Because after tonight, the answer is no. Not because of revenge, not because I'm angry, but because I don't partner with people who lack basic human decency. She looks at Claire. Everyone out. Now. Including you. Claire's face falls. Natasha. Out! The exodus begins. And for the first time all night, Natasha feels like she's finally in control. It takes 20 minutes to empty the house. Brandon leaves without another word, his entourage trailing behind him like ducklings. Claire tries twice more to talk to Natasha, but Natasha just points at the door until she leaves too. The catering staff stays to clean. Natasha tells them to leave everything, she'll handle it tomorrow, but Dorothy insists. You pay for a service, you get the full service, she says. So Natasha sits on the floor of her empty living room while Dorothy's team works around her, quietly efficient, erasing all evidence of the party. Her phone won't stop buzzing. Text messages, emails, calls from numbers she doesn't recognize. The video is everywhere now, multiple angles, different hashtags. Hashtag Technova is trending. Hashtag Brandon Whitmore is trending. Hashtag Wrong Neighborhood is trending. The narrative is already forming. Black tech entrepreneur humiliated at her own home, then reveals ownership in epic mic drop moment. It's being framed as a victory. Empowerment. Justice. And Natasha feels hollow. Because Dorothy was right. She's still playing their game. Still measuring her worth by their reactions. Still performing. One of the cleaning crew, a young guy maybe 22, approaches hesitantly. Ms. Williams? Sorry to bother you, but can I ask you something? Sure. My sister wants to study computer science. She's a senior in high school. But her counselor told her it's too competitive, that maybe she should consider something more realistic. He shifts uncomfortably. She's black, smart as hell. Just, nobody believes in her, you know? Natasha knows. What's her name? She asks. Jasmine. Tell Jasmine I want to meet her, Natasha says. I'll send you my contact info. I'm starting a mentorship program. She'll be my first mentee. The young man's face lights up. Serious? Oh man, she's going to... Thank you. Thank you so much. After he walks away, Dorothy appears with 2 cups of tea. Chamomile, she says. You look like you need it. They sit together in silence for a while, drinking tea in a $6 million mansion that somehow doesn't feel like home. You did good tonight, Dorothy finally says. Did I? Natasha asks. I let Claire manipulate me. I engaged with Brandon when I should have just kicked everyone out immediately. I let the whole thing become a spectacle. You're human, Dorothy says. Humans make messy choices. But you also stopped yourself from going down the revenge path. That takes strength. Natasha is quiet. Can I tell you something? Dorothy asks. My daughter's an engineer at Google, makes more money than I'll see in my lifetime. She bought a house in Los Gatos 2 years ago. That's wonderful. She's miserable, Dorothy says. Spends all her time proving she belongs, dresses a certain way, talks a certain way, comes home exhausted from performing whiteness all day. She won't come to family barbecues anymore because she says they're too ethnic. Natasha feels the words land. I didn't clean houses and build a business so my daughter could disappear into someone else's definition of success, Dorothy continues. I wanted her to have choices, to be free, but she's in a different kind of prison now, one with marble countertops and a Tesla in the driveway. I'm not your daughter, Natasha says quietly. No, Dorothy agrees. You're not. You're sitting on the floor of your mansion drinking tea with the help. That says something. Says I don't have furniture yet. Dorothy laughs. Fair point. But they both know that's not the whole truth. Natasha pulls out Dorothy's business card again, looks at Pastor Reeves' number on the back. Tell me about the community center, she says. And Dorothy does. Natasha doesn't sleep in her new house. At midnight, she thanks Dorothy and her crew, pays them triple the invoice plus tip, and drives back to her apartment in Oakland. The lease doesn't end for another month. The furniture is still there. She sleeps in her old bed, in her old neighborhood, and wakes up at 6 a.m. to 17 missed calls. Her lawyer, her financial advisor, 2 board members from her old company, a literary agent offering a book deal, 3 different PR firms offering to manage the narrative, and 1 call from a 650 number she doesn't recognize. She calls it back. Ms. Williams? A woman's voice, warm but professional. This is Angela Chen from the San Francisco Chronicle. Thank you for calling back. I know you're probably overwhelmed right now, but I wanted to reach out before you hear from other outlets. I'm not doing interviews, Natasha says. I understand. But I should tell you, we've been investigating Technova for 6 months. Sexual harassment allegations, discriminatory hiring practices, retaliation against employees who complained. Your video last night has given 3 more women the courage to come forward. We're publishing the full investigation tomorrow. Natasha sits up. What? Brandon Whitmore has been creating hostile environments for women and people of color for years, Angela continues. We have documentation, emails, recorded conversations, but everyone was too afraid to go on the record until they saw you stand up to him. I didn't mean to... Natasha stops. I wasn't trying to start a movement. I know, Angela says gently, but sometimes we don't get to control what our actions inspire. I'm calling because I want to include your perspective in the larger story. Not about last night, about the pattern, about what it means when someone with Brandon Whitmore's track record feels entitled to humiliate a black woman at a party. Natasha is quiet, thinking. Can I ask you something off the record? She finally says. Of course. Does exposing Brandon actually change anything? Or does it just make room for the next Brandon? Angela is silent for a moment. That's the right question, she says. And honestly, I don't know. But I know silence definitely doesn't change anything. After they hang up, Natasha makes coffee and sits at her kitchen table, the scratched IKEA one she bought when she first started her company, working 18-hour days while eating ramen. She thinks about 2 paths. Path 1. Participate in Angela's story. Become a symbol of standing up to racism in tech. Use the platform for change. Start a foundation. Give speeches. Mentor young black women in STEM. Be the representation she wishes she'd had. Path 2. Disappear from the narrative. Sell the Atherton house. Use the money quietly. Fund the community center Dorothy mentioned. Live her life without performing for an audience. Both feel true. Both feel right. But only one feels like freedom. Her phone rings again. This time it's a FaceTime from her younger cousin Aaliyah, a sophomore at Howard University. Cousin! Aaliyah's face fills the screen, eyes shining. I saw the video. You were incredible. Everyone at school is talking about it. Yeah? Natasha manages a smile. You made him look so stupid. Aaliyah says. And the way you just owned it. Literally owned it. She laughs. That's the dream, you know? Being so successful that racists can't touch you. Natasha's smile fades. Leah, she says carefully, that's not quite. I'm changing my major to computer science. Aaliyah interrupts excited. If you can do it, I can do it. I'm going to build my own company, buy my own house, and when people try to make me feel small, I'll just buy the whole damn building. And Natasha realizes the narrative is already written. The lesson is already being taught. And it's the wrong lesson. She has to fix this. Natasha drives to East Palo Alto. It's been years since she's really spent time there. Driving through on the way to somewhere else doesn't count. The neighborhood has changed. Tech money has started creeping in, pushing people out. But pockets of the old community remain. She finds Mount Zion Baptist Church on a quiet street, small and well-maintained. The sign out front says Sunday service is at 10 a.m., but it's Tuesday, so she doesn't expect anyone to be there. She's wrong. An older black man in work clothes is tending the small garden in front of the church. He looks up as she approaches. Help you? He asks. I'm looking for Pastor Reeves, Natasha says. You found him. He stands, wipes his hands on his pants, extends one to her. James Reeves, and you're Natasha Williams. She shouldn't be surprised. The video has been everywhere. I was hoping we could talk, she says. About the community center? He smiles. Dorothy said you might come by. Let's sit. They sit on the church steps, the morning sun warming the concrete. Before you make any offers, Pastor Reeves says, I want you to understand what we're really asking for. Dorothy said you need a technology lab. We do. But more than that, we need partners who understand that charity and investment are different things. Charity says, I'm helping you because you need me. Investment says, I'm betting on you because I see value. Natasha nods slowly. This community has been written off, Pastor Reeves continues. Underfunded schools, over-policed streets, no grocery stores, no banks that'll give small business loans. And when people like you make it out, they don't come back. Or if they do, it's to drop off a check and take a photo for Instagram. That's not what I want to do, Natasha says. I know, Pastor Reeves says. Because if it were, you'd have sent your assistant instead of coming yourself. So let me ask you, what do you want? Natasha thinks about her conversation with Aaliyah, about the narrative that's forming around her, about Dorothy's daughter who disappeared into someone else's definition of success. I want to build something real, she says finally. Not a viral moment, not a feel-good story, something that outlasts me, something that changes the game instead of just winning it. Pastor Reeves studies her. That's going to require something most rich people aren't willing to give. What's that? Time, he says. Real investment isn't just money. It's showing up, learning the community, making mistakes and fixing them, building trust over years, not photo ops. I can do that, Natasha says. Can you? Pastor Reeves asks. Because from where I sit, you've got a choice coming. That reporter from the Chronicle is going to publish her story. You're going to become a symbol whether you want to or not, and symbols have power. You could use that power to get book deals, speaking fees, board positions, or you could use it to platform the people who don't have it. Why not both? Because both requires you to split yourself in half, Pastor Reeves says. One half performing for the white gaze, the inspiring black success story, the other half doing the real work in community. Eventually, you'll have to choose which one is real and which one is performance. Natasha feels the weight of his words. My mother cleaned houses in neighborhoods like Atherton, she says. She used to bring home magazines and show me the kitchens, the pools, the gardens. She'd say, one day, baby, one day you'll live somewhere like this. And I thought that was freedom. I thought getting into those spaces, buying those houses, was how I'd honor her. Maybe it is, Pastor Reeves says gently. Or maybe, Natasha's voice catches, maybe she just wanted me to have choices. And I've spent 15 years so focused on climbing that I forgot to ask if I even wanted to be at the top. They sit in silence for a while. Finally, Pastor Reeves speaks. You know what I think? I think your mama would be proud either way. Proud you bought that house. And proud if you decided to sell it. Because the house was never the point. The point was that you got to choose. Natasha pulls out her phone, opens her real estate agent's contact. A different agent, not Claire. She types, I want to list the Atherton property immediately. And I need a realtor who works in East Palo Alto. She hits send. Pastor Reeves, she says, I'd like to talk about the community center, and I'd like to do it properly. With your board, your community stakeholders, the kids who'll use it. Not as a donor making demands, as a partner asking how I can help. Pastor Reeves smiles. Now that's a conversation I'm ready to have. The Chronicle publishes their investigation 3 days later. The article is devastating. 12 women with detailed accounts of Brandon Whitmore's harassment, documentation of discriminatory hiring practices. Technova's executive team is 94% white, 89% male. Emails showing Brandon referring to diversity initiatives as PR theater. And buried in the middle of the article, a single paragraph about the party. The pattern of behavior extended beyond the workplace. At a recent private event, Whitmore was recorded making racist remarks to Natasha Williams, founder of Artemis AI. Williams declined to comment for this story, instead releasing a brief statement. I hope the focus remains on the systemic issues, not on individual viral moments. Real change happens through policy, accountability, and sustained commitment to equity, not through public shaming. Natasha's phone explodes anyway. People are angry she didn't participate more in the article. Angry she's not using her platform. Angry she's protecting Brandon by not making it about the party. Others praise her for keeping the focus on the broader pattern. And some, mostly white, mostly male, accuse her of orchestrating the whole thing for publicity. She ignores all of it. Instead, she's in a church basement in East Palo Alto, in a planning meeting with 15 community members about the technology center. We're thinking job training, not just kid coding classes, says Maria, who runs the after-school program. Parents need skills, too. And we need to make sure it's not just tech skills, adds Jerome, a local business owner. We need financial literacy, entrepreneurship, how to navigate systems that weren't built for us. Natasha takes notes, listens more than she talks. Later, Pastor Reeves walks her to her car. You're doing this right, he says. Slow, respectful, I appreciate it. I'm terrified I'm going to screw it up, Natasha admits. You will, Pastor Reeves says cheerfully. But that's okay. Mistakes with good intentions can be fixed. It's the people who won't admit mistakes who do permanent damage. As Natasha drives back to Oakland, she's staying in her old apartment until she figures out what's next. She gets a call from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answers. Ms. Williams? A man's voice, familiar. It's Brandon Whitmore. Please don't hang up. Natasha almost does, but something stops her. You have 30 seconds. I resigned from Technova, Brandon says. The board asked for it, but I would have done it anyway. I'm not calling to ask for anything or to make excuses. I needed you to know that I'm listening, really listening, not performing listening for the cameras, actually doing the work. The work, Natasha repeats, her voice flat. Therapy, reading, sitting with how much damage I've caused. Understanding that an apology means nothing without changed behavior. He pauses. I don't expect you to care. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that what happened that night, it broke something open in me, and I'm not wasting it. Natasha is quiet for a moment. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the only person who doesn't owe me anything, Brandon says. My friends, my family, my therapist, they all have reasons to tell me what I want to hear. But you? You have every reason to tell me the truth. The truth, Natasha says slowly, is that I don't think about you at all. She can hear him absorb that. And that's not meant to be cruel, she continues. But you're not my project. You're not my villain. You're not even my story. What you do with the rest of your life is between you and the people you've harmed. I've got other things to build. I understand, Brandon says quietly. Thank you for taking the call. After she hangs up, Natasha sits in her car for a long time. She thinks about grace, about accountability, about whether someone like Brandon Whitmore can actually change, or if he's just getting better at performing change. She decides it doesn't matter, because Dorothy was right. Brandon Whitmore is irrelevant to her real work. Her phone buzzes with a text from Aaliyah. Cousin, I saw you're working with Pastor Reeves. Can I volunteer this summer? Want to be part of something that matters? Natasha smiles. Now that's the right question. She texts back. Come through. We need you. 6 months later. The Williams Technology and Community Center opens on a Saturday morning in September, not in Atherton, in East Palo Alto. The building is modest, a renovated community space, freshly painted, equipped with new computers and workstations. Nothing fancy, but it's theirs. Natasha stands in the back during the ribbon cutting, watching Pastor Reeves speak, watching Dorothy's catering company provide food, watching 50 neighborhood kids and their families fill the space. Aaliyah is there, having spent her summer helping design the curriculum. Jasmine, the sister of the catering staff member from that night, is there too, starting college at San Jose State with a scholarship the Williams Initiative funded. The local news covers it, but not the national outlets, not CNN or TechCrunch. This isn't viral. This isn't a moment. This is just work. After the ceremony, Natasha walks through the computer lab, watching kids explore the equipment. A 10-year-old girl with braids is already coding a simple game, her grandmother watching over her shoulder with tears in her eyes. Ms. Williams? It's Maria from the planning committee. The reporter from the community newspaper wants a quote. What should we tell her? Natasha thinks for a moment. Tell her this isn't about me, she says. It's about what happens when we invest in communities instead of extracting from them. When we build with people instead of for them. When we measure success by how many people rise, not by how high one person climbs. Maria grins. She's going to want something shorter. Then tell her, Natasha looks around the room. Tell her this is what coming home looks like. Later, Natasha sits on the front steps of the center with Pastor Reeves and Dorothy, watching families leave with information packets and registration forms. Your house sold, didn't it? Dorothy asks. Last week, Natasha confirms. Got asking price. And you bought? A condo in Oakland, Natasha says, near Lake Merritt. 2 bedrooms, city view, walkable to good coffee. It's perfect. Not Atherton? Pastor Reeves asks with a knowing smile. Not Atherton, Natasha agrees. Turns out I didn't need the most expensive zip code in America. I just needed home. Her phone buzzes. Email from Angela Chen at the Chronicle. Natasha, following up on our conversation from last month. The TechNova story won the Investigative Reporting Award. Brandon Whitmore has completely withdrawn from the tech industry. 3 of the women who came forward have started their own company together. They credit you with giving them courage to speak up. Thought you'd want to know. Natasha shows the email to Dorothy and Pastor Reeves. That's real impact, Pastor Reeves says. Maybe, Natasha says, or maybe they would have found their courage anyway. I just happened to be there at the right time. Don't diminish it, Dorothy says firmly. You stood in your truth when it would have been easier to walk away. That matters. A young woman approaches, one of the volunteer coordinators. Ms. Williams, there's someone here to see you. She says she's from Catalyst Equity. Natasha stands, the private equity firm that bought her company. This should be interesting. The woman is in her 40s, sharply dressed, carrying a briefcase. Ms. Williams, I'm Rebecca Torres, COO of Catalyst. Do you have a few minutes? They walk to a quieter corner of the parking lot. I'll get right to it, Rebecca says. We've been watching what you're doing here. The community center, the small business incubators, the educational programs. We're impressed. Thank you, Natasha says carefully. We'd like to fund it, Rebecca continues, not as charity, as investment. We want to replicate this model in 10 cities over the next 3 years. Oakland, Atlanta, Detroit, Houston. Communities with tech talent but without access to capital and resources. We'd like you to lead the initiative. Natasha feels her heart race. That's a big offer. We think you're the right person to do it right, Rebecca says. Not extractive, not performative, real partnership with communities. What do you think? Natasha looks back at the community center, at the kids leaving with their parents, at Pastor Reeves and Dorothy still sitting on the steps. She thinks about the choice she's been making every day for 6 months. Show up, listen, build, repeat. I think I need to talk to my partners, Natasha says. Pastor Reeves, Dorothy, Maria, the community board. This isn't my decision alone. Rebecca smiles. That's exactly why we want you. After Rebecca leaves, Natasha returns to the steps. So? Dorothy asks. Natasha tells them about the offer. What do you want to do? Pastor Reeves asks. And Natasha realizes, for the first time in her life, she doesn't have to prove anything. She doesn't have to perform. She doesn't have to choose between her success and her values. She just has to keep building. I want to say yes, she says, but only if you're both in. Only if we do this together. Only if we build it the right way. Dorothy and Pastor Reeves exchange glances. Then let's build, Pastor Reeves says. And they do.